Meow meow meow, Cantonese cat here. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I want to introduce you to my friend Danny. He is on X, formerly known as Twitter. His handle is DannyChangs2022. I started communicating with him. Oh, he's got 7,000 followers already. I started communicating with him about a year ago, and he has some pretty interesting data. I'm sure by now, if you follow me, you're probably going to have seen Danny's charts here as well. He has shown me these charts really for about a year now. We've kind of communication with each other for behind the scene here. So I asked him to help me pull up the daily, weekly, and monthly chart for Mara. And I do want to show you something. First of all, why I think these charts could potentially be helpful and what you're really looking at when you're looking at it. It is a pretty busy chart, right? So first of all, right off the bat, you want to know what time frame you're looking at. So this is D, right? Stands for daily, not Danny, right? So if you don't care about anything else, if you just want to look at buy or sell signal, which I strongly discourage you to do, but if that's all you really care about, what you really need to focus on are these candles right here on the first panel. The first panel, you're gonna see that the red candles here are buy signal, and the yellow candle here is a sell signal, right? For the most part, if you shut off your brain, if you just follow the buy and sell signal, generally you're gonna do pretty well. There is going to be some signal here and there that could potentially be a little bit of noise, especially for a daily chart like this. But for the most part, it works out pretty well. I'm going to show you some example. For example, up here, we got a buy signal here. It actually downtrend a little bit and actually have a sell signal here. And next thing you know, it just kind of chop around until you get a pretty big buy signal right here on the daily chart. And this really became a pretty good trend, right? So you would have made a lot of profits if you followed this and you would have sold here at the sell signal. If you sold here, it's going to chop around a little bit, but next thing you know, you got exhausted, came back down, and next thing you know, you're waiting for a buy signal, right? You already sold, you buy here, and it's going to chop around a little bit, and it's going to make you sell here. It's a little bit of a noise, but you end up buying here, following this trend right here, and you end up selling here, which you actually didn't really make that much of a profit, but you end up buying here. You could potentially be capturing the next big move up, right? I discourage you, and also I think Danny will also discourage you to just simply shut up your brain to follow these buy or sell signal, because you also want to know the context of these buy or sell signals, right? For example, these buy and sell signals I think are very heavily dependent on flow, which I'm going to get into underneath down here and here, right? Another thing that's important to look at is what these buy and sell signal are in context to the trend, right? How do you tell the trend on the first panel? Well, you look at this big ribbon right here. Basically, all you need to know is that red ribbon means that it's a bullish trend, and when it turns into a blue ribbon, it's a bearish trend, right? All you really need to know is that the thicker it is, the better it is as a support or resistance, and the thinner it is, the weaker it is. So basically, go down here. It might be the start of a red ribbon here. It may become a stronger bull trend later on, but it's going to chop around here a little bit, right? Because the ribbon simply isn't strong enough. Now, when the ribbon becomes strong, and when you have the buy signal right here, you really can see how strong the ribbon is all the way up here, right? Even if you have a sell signal, you're still going to be able to bounce around the ribbon here a little bit because you're finding pretty strong support here until it begins to roll over and it starts to really becoming thin, right? And as it goes down here, you see a buy signal over here based on flow data, but you're not just going to immediately push up, right? Because of how thick the bearish blue ribbon is. It ends up chopping here, trying to make a space up. It seemed like it wasn't going to be able to do it. Actually had the sell signal right here. Next thing you know, over here, the blue ribbon is starting to roll up. And you're starting to get a little area here that is not as thick, so the price end up attacking it. When above it, you got a buy signal right there, right? I think that it's very possible that the current buy signal that just came on the daily is happening on a beginning of a thicker red ribbon, and there's a potential that it just keep going up. And I'll kind of show you, why I think that is based on flow data, right? Panel 2 tells you really inflow and outflows in general. The big money that's going to move these flow numbers are going to be the big money. Right, the small money, some retail can move it a little bit, but in general, it doesn't really move it that much, right? So this flow data tends to tell you a little bit more about like big money movements and things like that. And as you can see, when you got a pretty strong red ribbon going up, you can see there's generally a very steady inflow of capital that's coming in, right? Until it doesn't, until the trend changes, and you can see that over here, bam, 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 bam. Now here it's starting to get a little bit exhausted, right? You can see that this candle, the inflow is not as strong as this candle inflow right here. Even if you look at an indicator down here, it's starting to kind of roll over, right? So it's a little bit of a warning trend here, as you can see this arm kind of going up for many, many days. It's starting to roll over here a little bit. It didn't give you the sell signal quite just yet. It wanted some confirmation, right? Next thing you know, the day after, big outflow candle, sell signal, right? And sure enough, the sell signal is pretty good when it comes to flow of capital, because from here it does look like money is flowing out, right? Which eventually follows the chart, although the price wasn't as sensitive, right? But eventually this outflow is going to follow with a downtrend, right? Well, guess what? The outflow starts to slow down over here, right? And it became inflow again with these red candles right here signifying inflow, green signifying outflow. You can see that inflow is starting to come. It still didn't quite give you the buy signal quite just yet, but when it increases in size right here, that's when the buy signal comes, right? And you're going to have a little bit of a false, like a little bit of noise right here. Again, it's a daily chart. What do you expect, right? You have to put it into context. But it gives you a buy signal pretty quickly this time. Once it really accelerates the trend up into inflow, bam, buy signal. Got a little bit of a sell signal here, is a little bit delayed. But you can see right now we also have a change in trend today. You can see there's a buy signal coming in the context of having inflow, right? There's a potential this is a trend change and it can keep rolling up for a little bit. Now, panel 3, it doesn't show you the raw inflow outflow data. This is more of a percentage. And what it's supposed to be representing is that the red data here represents whale presence. The green data bars up here, it represents the retail presence, and this is based on percentages, right? Yellow right here is ambiguous. Usually these are just like short-term traders. It doesn't really tell you one way or another. What you're seeing here is that during certain part of the trend, whales, especially when whales started staying and they started predominating being there, is when the powerful move generally happens, right? Whereas when you have a lot of retail sticking around, a whole lot of nothing can happen until there's a huge inflow from whales again. That's when you really start to see things kind of moving up in terms of price, right? These kinds of buys and sell signal are based on these flow data predominantly, but I think that it might also take into consideration of this, red and green bars down here too. The other indicators down here, it's some pretty decent added data here. This is just a regular MACD. This is 3 different sets of RSI based on different periods that Danny likes to use. I believe, man, I can't even see very well. I think it's 9, 14, and 24, right? So if they curl up like that, it really seemed, and if 9 is greater than 14 greater than 24, it really tells you that, hey, maybe a bull trend is starting to develop here. Same thing here, right? This is the MACD, right? Red above yellow, that's a bull trend. And, yellow above red, that's a bear trend, right? So it's starting to look like it was about to roll over, but it didn't. It started to separate here a little bit, right? So maybe it's going to keep going up. Same thing here. RSI is really telling you that, hey, maybe there's a change right here, right? Whale data, looks like there's a lot more whale presence. Retail is basically very minuscule here. Inflow is starting to come. You got a buy signal, right? In addition to all of that, panel 1 here also tells you a few added things. It's a pretty busy chart here, but it tells you actually the Bollinger Band, right? Right here, that's the basis, and that's the lower Bollinger Band. So you can actually see that, if price is above the upper Bollinger Band a lot, it might end up staying in the next day. Daily, I don't find this to be as helpful just because of how volatile it can be during the daily, but I'm going to show you that a little bit more, on the weekly and monthly, how it could potentially be useful, but especially the monthly. But this is basically the daily chart for Mara. based on looking at this, it does seem like there might be a beginning of a bull trend coming on the daily, right? And I just spent about 10 minutes just talking about the daily chart. This is the weekly. Now that you know how to look at it, I'm just going to go for it real quick. Look at the ribbon, right? Blue, bear, red, bull, right? Bear, bull. Looks like it's pointing up. In terms of the ribbon, there's potential for ribbon to continue to expand and be thicker and be good support. Looking at the volume shelves here, actually these are pretty good data too. These volume shelves are actually relatively accurate. They're also very similar volume shelves that I see on my charts as well, and they could potentially serve as pretty good resistance versus support. You can see that price basically bounced off of this volume shelf right here and basically bounced from this volume shelf above, bounced down, right? So these volume shelves could potentially serve as pretty decent support and resistance. Here, as a matter of fact, I actually think that it kind of broke above this volume shelf right here. It came back to do a back test, found support, and it went up, right? So that's also something else to kind of pay attention to too. That's another added piece of data that Danny doesn't necessarily always talk about, just because his chart is so informative, right? Now, you can see that you have these pretty decent buy and sell signals. Sometimes you can have a false buy signal followed by a sell signal. But in general, like if you buy and sell here, that's not going to make that big of a difference. If you sold here, most likely you're going to end up avoiding a lot of the loss, right? If you buy here, you might still end up having a little bit of a loss here, but overall, if you follow these kind of buy and sell signal, if given time, you might still be doing okay. But it's still not perfect, right? You're better off, to be honest, sometimes if you just let time do its thing. If you think overall the monthly chart is bullish, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, and I thought it was, you might as well just end up buying here and just hold all the way through instead of trying to buy and sell right here, because sometimes the signal is a little bit noisy. Now, if you know how to read the flow data, you might be able to get an edge and not wait for these buy and sell signals, right? I do think that these buy and sell signals are good. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. You have to be able to read the rest of it to make your decisions. For example, as you can see over here, the flow start to decrease is when this downtrend comes, right? Even though there's a false buy signal here, it's tricky. I think it's probably better to kind of follow these things. Matter of fact, if the higher time frame you look at, the more reliable it is, as far as I'm concerned, right? But basically, it gives you very, very similar data, but just on a very, very different time frame. Flow data, the percentage of whales versus percentage of retail that are in the stock. MACD and RSI, all of these are positive on the weekly time frame. Matter of fact, if you look over at the inflow, and you look over at the whale percentages, even though price has gone up significantly from here down to here, you're starting to actually have more whales coming in. You actually starting to have more inflow of funds coming in. I'm not sure if this is an exhaustion here. I mean, I think that this could go on for a while. You might end up having a little bit of whales leaving, then they would come back. But I think this trend here could potentially last for a while. And this also is something that would be a lot more apparent if you look at the monthly. If you look at the monthly chart, it's going to give you a lot better detail here. Now, the data before 2017, I'm not even going to worry because they weren't, like Mara really wasn't involved in cryptocurrency before 2017. They started really being involved in 2017 and started becoming minor around that time. And that's when it started correlating with Bitcoin prices, right? So this right here is the whole monthly chart right here. And this right here is the last bull cycle, right? And this right here, I think we're at the beginning of a new bull cycle. So there are a couple of things to look at here. First of all, remember, if you watch my other videos, I look at the Bollinger Bands, right? And the Bollinger Band is going to give you a basis. The basis is a 20-month moving average. This is a monthly chart. If you can see that the 20-month moving average is starting to curl up right here, the white line right here is starting to curl up, I think that there's a beginning of a pretty strong, bull trend here, right? Sure enough, there's a buy signal here correlated with Danny's chart, right? and this accelerates up like that, it started to have a bam buy signal here again, right? Over here, I think we might be seeing a very similar thing. You might have a hard time seeing it because it's kind of hidden behind the ribbon, but you can see that the 20-month moving average is also starting to curl up. This coincides pretty well with the ribbons that you're seeing, right? Again, when it starts to kind of curl up like that, the ribbon starts to becoming thinner and thinner and thinner. And then, you get a red ribbon right here. This is really when the bull trend is starting to be pretty, pretty powerful. Until it starts to roll over, it becomes a weaker support, right? I think the ribbon actually fits pretty well in terms of the 20-month moving average. I do think the 20-month moving average actually comes a little bit ahead of time when it's trying to call a trend change. But it's still pretty good. Like, these buy signals are still pretty good. You're going to get some noise here. You're going to get a lot of chop here. You're going to get some noise here. You're going to get a lot of chop here. That's why I'm saying don't just rely on the buy and sell signal. Look at the trend. The trend might be able to tell you a little bit something different too. In general, these buy signals are very good. For example, if you buy here, oh man, you made all of this money right here, right? If you sell here, you prevent loss of all this money right here, right? But there's more to that. I just wanted to show you. Flow data. Last bull cycle, flow, outflow, last push up, right? And then you start to have a significant outflow right down here in 2022. It started to chop around here a little bit. Guess what? The inflow's back. We really haven't seen this kind of crazy acceleration of inflow with this big volume candle since the last bull cycle. This coincides with the beginning of formation of a red ribbon and also a buy signal right here. This buy signal is corresponding with the flow, is corresponding to the percentage of the whales that are in the stock right now. As you can see, at the beginning of the bull cycle, you're going to get a lot more whales coming in. They're going to leave a little bit, but they're going to come back again. I think right now we might have gone through a very similar phase where they came in, left a little bit, and they came back again. I think we might be sort of at the beginning of the red ribbon pointing up, and at the beginning of when you start to have pretty significant whale presence here on the monthly chart. In the MACD, it seems to be pretty significantly up, right? And during the bear market, it pointed down, had a MACD cross right there, and now it's starting to point up, and the MACD is separating and started to point up. Recently, we have a separation of RSI pointing to the upside. This looked like a very, very bullish trend on the daily, weekly, and monthly. I don't know what else to say. I am not giving you any financial advice. Danny is not giving you any financial advice. This chart looks bullish in all three time frames. I don't know what else to say, right? If you're wondering whether or not we could be potentially at some pretty important resistance, you can look at the volume shelves here, sure, right? You probably are going to get a little bit of chop here potentially, right? But I personally don't really care about that much because I'm seeing a pretty good setup here. I'm been buying in Q1 of 2024. I was actually buying in Q4, when price is going down and everybody is freaking out. I was buying here. I mean, I don't know what to say, right? I mean, I'm seeing that the bear trend could potentially start to kind of be abated here. So I really started buying months and months ago. I think I might stop buying soon. I'm not going to tell you what to do, right? Some people wait for confirmation, wait for momentum to pick up. If that's you, there are going to be some people that are going to consider buying here. Not financial advice. You do you, right? There is no right answer. There is only what you can learn from it. There's only what you can see from it. And you choose your action. You want to do whatever you want to do. I also happen to think that Mora is super volatile, so I would not play options. I would not play earnings. Earnings are coming up. I don't know what to expect, right? There could be some additional volatility too. But it doesn't change the fact that right now it seems that the bigger trend is positive and is bullish. And I'm sticking with it. I'm not gonna sell, I don't think. But I'm also getting to the point that since I've been buying over here, I'm probably gonna stop. I'm probably just gonna let it ride and see where it takes us. I might make a separate video talking about my own technical analysis on Mara, but I just want to spend 20 minutes going through Danny's chart, tell you what I think, tell you what I see, tell you what I've learned from him. Now, he might disagree with some of the things I say, right? It's a chart, everybody has different interpretation. That's what's fun about this, right? You're constantly learning other people's system, you're constantly figuring out things. But anyway, it's been 20 minutes. Thank you for listening. I'll let you go. Bye.